Ever since I was a kid, I had dreamed about becoming a superhero. Every night I dressed up as either Superman, Batman, Spider Man. You name the hero, I probably wore the tights for him at some point in my life. And it's not just me, many people have, including you probably. Well, why though? Why have we as a society done this? Well, it all relates back to one simple thing: comic books and their impact on our culture and society. Truth be told, I grew up reading, collecting, and even studying them. You could pull up any sort of quiz, questionnaire, or even ask me a question about any one of the numerous heroes in today's comic book lore, and my head would go into overdrive, thinking about the various facts that I know, storylines I've read them in, and other simple things. And I could state it all off the top of my head. And it wouldn't just be, common knowledge things. It could be obscure, very obscure. For example, do you know the character Green Lantern? Well, there are numerous Green Lanterns but the canon New 52 DC Universe roster, the New 52 is the current continuity, if I go into that, it'll be crazy, hosts a number of Earth Green Lanterns. And these include Kyle Rayner, Guy Gardner, Alan Scott, John Stewart, Hal Jordan, and many others, just to name a few. And these aren't all known. Many people don't really look into these sort of things. Why? Because they see comic books as just a kid thing. But in reality, comic books have become more relevant in this day and age than any other. And this is in credit to $1 billion movie industry, $1 billion video game industry, clothes even. The comic book industry has touched almost everything and has become so big that comic books have affected our way of thinking, offering us meaningful stories that really make us think critically about the world and also shape our cultural view. You see, comic books offer meaningful stories that shape our literary and cultural view and therefore establish themselves as an impactful source of literature and ideals. When it comes to comic books offer us stories that challenge our way of thinking, showing us different views of our reality, changing the way we think critically about things, whilst also illustrating different character archetypes that help relate to the reader and therefore give them some ideals to strive towards. This can be seen through stories such as Watchmen by Alan Moore. See, this story was unlike any other of its time. Not even books could compare to it. In the story itself, Watchmen, the titular characters, were flawed, were human outcasts, and it allowed the world to really see what road it was coming towards. From a crime-ridden, lust-filled, ravaged wasteland to a war-torn landscape or a greed-infested hive. Watchmen showed the world its true face, or at least what it could be, and has since then changed the storytelling landscape for years to come. Many comics and other literary sources have tried copying its format by creating flawed characters that represent different types of ideals, such as idealism, nihilism, um, realism, just to name a few. This storytelling really made us question our own reality, whilst offering us the question: do we do what is moral or do what is right? Giving comic books in general deeper meaning if we read in between the lines. This is what many other comics strive for, at least, to make us really think about our ideals as a society and help us either better ourselves or make sure we don't head down the wrong path entirely. Not only that, but comic books offer us not just stories, but archetypes, character ideals to strive towards, to inhabit in our own selves. In an interview with NPR, Stan Lee stated, when Spider Man came on the scene, this was a real first. He was a kind of young, but flawed as well with regular human problems. I mean, Peter Parker had dandruff, but he also had crushes on girls. He was a little bit of a geek, and I think it's fair to say he cried a little bit too. He was vulnerable. And this was unheard of at the time. But it allowed for people to relate and copy the ideals that these heroes represented. It gave us ideals to personify, to be better than who we are. And this can be seen through various quotes given to us by comic book culture, such as, with great power comes great responsibility. That's a great ideal that many people in today's history and culture strive for. If, as we read comics, if we read in between the lines, we see comments on society, but we also see ideals we can strive toward. It permits us to think critically about the world and form our opinions on our life and the way it is lived. But comics do much more. They impact us culturally too. You see, comic books have impacted our culture view by becoming the background for blockbusters, and conventions, and other cultural phenomena that shape our cultural trends and views. According to Shauna Kidman in her academic journal titled Comic Book Incorporated on page 123, indeed, prominent creators in a variety of media look fondly back on comics and have been inspired. In the 1980s, this includes some of Hollywood's best and original and brightest minds. These include Steven Spielberg, John Carpenter, John Hughes, Stephen King, indicating that comic books have had influence over almost every type of media in today's culture. Not only that, but comics have been shown to be the background for hit movies. As Variety states in an interview with Kevin Feige, head of Marvel Studios, since Marvel began burrowing into its back catalog, the entertainment landscape as a whole has been overtaken by nerd culture. Fantasy series and graphic novels such as Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead have become rating juggernauts, and cape-wearing heroes and spell-casting protagonists, ranging from Shazam to Harry Potter, have dominated the box office. The comic book fringe, it would seem, has fully co-opted popular culture, showing that comic books have had influence in everything we watch and feel, indicating their very high prevalence. Because of these huge blockbusters and big name brands that have tried appealing to comic book trends, and this can be seen through the conventions that are held. San Diego Comic-Con, one of the biggest in the world to name one, where thousands upon thousands of people dress up as their favorite heroes just to relate with each other, just to enjoy this common thing. Thus exemplifying how, and this is exemplified through the hundreds of thousands of dollars that are spent there just to see this, just to see people dressed up as Wonder Woman, to see the movies that they're going to show for the future. This exemplifies the impact that comic books have on us today. In conclusion, comic books hold a large influence in our society, allowing us to view culture and literature differently by showing us different thematic schemes and character archetypes to influence our way of thinking, whilst impacting our culture by creating various cultural phenomenon like billion-dollar movie industries and culture-shifting conventions. Because of comic books, the world has seen a very big change in anyone who views it, from changing ideals to changing outlooks on life. Comic books will always be there, and comic books are a testament to time.